Hey everyone, hopefully everyone had a great holiday season. And in today's video, I want to broach on a topic that is becoming more and more prominent in the feedback I'm getting through my videos and my content and during my live streams. And that is the fact of players' frustration on the current system, the crafting system in Path of Exile 2. Now, I kind of wanted to talk about this like at a high level. And I know for a lot of the player base, this is not a problem because if you're really in tune with the game and you're familiar with Path of Exile, crafting is probably not at your top of the priority list when it comes to things that Grinding Gear Games has to fix. However, there is an influx of a lot of new players coming into Path of Exile 2, and with that comes a lot of people coming into this game with not a lot of education and experience in how this game works. Now, I do want to say, before we get into this topic, Grinding Gear Games has done a great job in providing a helping hand to those new players in this game. There's a lot of things in the game that really lower the level of entry into this game. So Grinding Gear Games need to be recognized for that. However, the question that I want to ponder today is, does it seem like to you guys that Path of Exile 2, when it comes to crafting, is a lot more RNG based? We don't have that much control. It looks like a lot of the mechanics in the game currently, it's basically a flip of the coin whether or not we're going to be able to upgrade our character or enhance our character. And that is the premise of this video. I want to explore that. And I'm currently making a video right now on kind of like a lot of these questions that Grinding Gear Games are going to have to answer during early access. The more and more feedback that they're getting, the more and more questions are popping up, which they have a lot of decisions to make. Now, they do have, this is early days in early access, so they do have a lot of time to address these concerns. But the one I want to focus on today is the RNG kind of system that's in Path of Exile 2, which is, to some players, is leaving a bad taste in their mouth. And I kind of just want to dive into that and get your thoughts on how you are feeling and if this is even an issue for that. Now, I do want to preface this video by saying that I understand for most of you, this is probably not an issue, but we are going to go down the road and explore and look at how things have changed when it comes to these systems. The crafting system, although easier, has presented some other problems that didn't exist in Path of Exile 1. So let's take a look. Okay, so back in the old days of Path of Exile 1, when it came to handling resistances, and yes, these are my resistances, but I don't want to get into why my resistances are as bad as they are. I'm currently playing the rarity of items found game over better resistances, but that's a topic for another video. But my point is, in Path of Exile 1, if I had these stats, I would simply go to the crafting bench, I would look at my gear, and I would simply add or replace a resistance in order to improve my resistances. Now, in Path of Exile 1, you could probably get away a little bit with the resistance. You definitely didn't have to worry about chaos resistance during the campaign in Path of Exile 1. As long as you were at 0, 10, 20% chaos resistance during the campaign, you were good. You just had to cap fire, lightning, and cold, and you were good. But my point is, the crafting bench, provided an outlet for you to deal with these issues. Okay, now in Path of Exile 2, as you most of you know, there are several ways that we can get resistance. So the first way is we get permanent buffs on our resistances, on specific ones during the campaign. So there are permanent buffs for resistances that we get during the campaign. Okay, that's number one. Number two, obviously, is we can get it in our gear. Now, that happens naturally. That happens through crafting our gear. That happens through putting slots in our gear where we could put ruins in them to provide resistances. Okay. And it's the latter two that I want to focus on this video, and where I feel Grinding Gear Games has to take a look at this and decide, is this how we want this mechanic to work? And I present you with the following. Now, I say, has POE 2 become RNG based when it comes to this mechanic? Because of the following. Now, let's say I have this base, okay? And my build is an evasion build. I want evasion, and I'm not going to get into the details of my build, but I need evasion, and also I need spirit because of the auras that I need for this build. And of course, I also want resistances as much as possible, anywhere possible, in order to get the cap. Now, in order to get this base, I now have to start slamming it. So obviously, I'm going to do a transmutation on it. Okay, now we can get into a little bit more sophistication. We can do essences and stuff like that, but let's just keep it simple. So right away, I get reduced bleeding. Okay, let's assume that's something that I wanted, but right away, this could potentially already be out the door if that's not what I wanted. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to go through and do another slam. So now we're going to aug it, and now it's got life. So life is pretty good. Okay. 39. It's a tier 3. That's not bad. Okay. So then we're going to regal it, and this is where, now again, that's already two possibilities where can potentially brick and say it's not worth my effort. But again, only for demonstration purposes. Let's say I was happy with both rolls, then I regal it, and I get dexterity. Now this is where you need to make another decision. Again, this item is out the door, or you continue. Now, the next step is you exalt it. We can have a total of 6 prefixes and suffixes total, affixes, and you would continue to go down that road. Now, this one to me is already on the fence. I'm not going to exalt them because, as you can see, I'm not that rich right now. We're only in tier 4 maps. So, and I've done a lot of re-rolling and stuff, but that's another story. But my point is, there's so much RNG in this, it's not even funny. And this is where kind of like the rubber hits the road when it comes to Grinding Gear Games. What do they do? Because now I would exalt this, until I got to 6, and I either like it or don't. And all these resources, now to me, I'm good when it comes to the crafting resources because I've been very diligent in keeping and picking up everything in order to either disenchant them, okay, or sell them. And also with sockets, you salvage them in order to be able to get the currency, which are the artificer's orbs, in order to put sockets on gear, in order to be able to put ruins on them. Now, that is problem number 1. The fact that we kind of are not in control in how we can handle our resistances and getting to cap. That's number 1. Number 2, let's say this piece was a piece that I want. It's I'm keeping it. It's a permanent build of mine. I am stuck with the cold resistance ruins on this for good. The fact that we can't mix and match our ruins once we put them in, look, we're stuck with them. Okay. And maybe that was a bad example, but my point is, if you have a piece that you know you're going to keep, and at that point when you had that piece, you were neglecting cold resistance. So therefore, you put the cold ruins in there, and then you put it up, and then you get a drop naturally with a really, really OP cold resistance. And it's a piece of gear that you need. Once you equip that, you're now overcap. It's really burning an affix on the item because it's no good to you just because of the circumstance. So again, maybe I explained it poorly, but that is another example of how it's so RNG when it comes to crafting and handling your resistances. And a lot of people are complaining about it. Now, I know a lot of people, this is a non-issue, so do not get me wrong. And personally, I think this is a problem that Grinding Gear Games needs to address. And the other reason why it needs to be addressed is because resistances matter so much more in Path of Exile 2. Like these on death effects that are in the game just enhance how much more you need to cap your resistances. It really amps up your survivability. And I'm speaking of it firsthand. Because of my lack of resistances, I have to walk very methodically and slowly when I'm doing maps because I just get one tapped if I get hit by one of those on death effects. On the ground, shit exploding to you as soon as you walk into an area. Like, you guys have all experienced it. So resistant caps matter more in Path of Exile 2, in my opinion, than it did in Path of Exile 1. So I don't know how Grinding Gear Games is going to handle it. Maybe they say, look, I know this is a problem for part of the player base. We're getting a huge influx of new players in the game. But really, overall, in the grand scheme of things, the majority of the players are able to deal with this issue through the mechanics that are in the game, so it's really not a big deal. Or maybe they see that there are big problems with this and they make changes. And to me, the changes I would make is I would take away the RNG proponent of it. And maybe the first step in that is make ruins interchangeable so you can remove them. And therefore, if you're overcapped in one area, you can take out the ruin and put that other ruin in there that compensates and enhances the other resistance that you're missing. So like my example of being overcapped in cold, you can take them out, and let's say you were lacking in fire, you can now take out those two cold resistant ruins and put two fire resistant ruins. And now you're better off. Your character is a little bit enhanced and you're progressing. I can tell you one thing, in the early campaign, this is an issue big time because it's so RNG. In Path of Exile 1, that didn't exist. You went to the crafting bench as you were progressing through the campaign, and if you were concentrated on the resistances, which you should be in Path of Exile 1, you easily hit cap all the time in Path of Exile 1 through the crafting bench. And like I said, even the replacement aspect mechanic in Path of Exile 1 easily allowed you to take from one, Rob from Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. And I think somehow Grinding Gear Games needs to come up with some sort of format. And my first reaction is being able to take out ruins. I think it just will enhance the game and make it that much better for the new player experience. Now, we do have the charms that also can compensate for the resistances. But again, I personally think the charms are better off suited for dealing with things like freeze, stun, stuff like that. But again, we do have another way with the resistances, and that is through the charms. And there is a non-issue with getting all the different resistant charms in the game, so that's not really a problem. But the fact that currently the max is 3 slots on a belt, and I'll be honest with you, you don't see a like I didn't see a 2-slot belt until I started mapping. I was only getting 1-slot belts in the campaign and in early mapping. I just literally got my first 2-slot belt while I was mapping. So again, something that is RNG related, and although you only really need 1 slot and you can pop in a resistance charm in there, again, there's so much lack of resistances that you can get because it's so RNG. Now, unless you're a super god and super lucky and you're getting gear that's naturally dropping resistances on it, or you're crafting and you're rolling and you're slamming items and you're hitting all of them and getting resistances and getting the armor and getting your damage and all that, whatever, and life and mana and all that kind of stuff, then, well, I think you're an outlier. You're an anomaly, because I would say the majority of the people are struggling in getting the affixes they need on their gear and weapons. So, again, RNG related, if we don't get a 2-slot or 3-slot belt so late into the game, it really limits what we can and can do with the charms. Although charms, like I said, are another outlet for us to add and stack resistances on our character. Okay, so that's the down and dirty version of it, and I just wanted to kind of highlight it and see where everyone's at. Is this RNG aspect of the game, is it bugging you? Is it not bugging you? Do you think grinding gear games need to look at this, or is this kind of like a new player thing, and just get over it, just get good? Like, you're gonna have to craft materials. And that's the other thing that this process, this mechanic also naturally brings into the game, the fact that you're picking up items that you probably wouldn't be picking up. Okay, we're picking up whites because we need the gold. We're picking up blues and yellows and gear with sockets in them because we need the mats in order to take care of these issues in the game. Now, of course, I would argue to you that we really should be only picking up rares and above, but we're picking up blues so we can disenchant them for the mats. We're picking up whites with sockets in gear so we can salvage it again for the mats in order to put sockets on gear. Like, all these things that we're doing, this also facilitates and produces us going in and out of town more frequently. Again, is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? Now, I personally don't have a problem with this grindiness of the game because I love grindy games, but some people don't. Some people just want to pick up items that they're actually going to use, not salvage or disenchant, if you know what I mean. But then again, we're getting really deep down into the weeds. So what do you think? Do you think this is a problem, or this is just like a new player thing? Let me know in the comments section. I would really love to hear your thoughts. And as always, I stream live on Twitch, channel name is SamyCaps, and on YouTube, channel name is SamyCaps. I stream every evening. We've been grinding Path of Exile 2. I'm on my second character. We're in tier 4 maps right now. We're having a great time grinding this game. I do want to say this game, I look forward to playing it every day. It's only going to get better and better and better. So come on over and say hello. We'd love to say hello back. And as always, if you can like, comment, and subscribe to my content, I would really appreciate the support. It's free and it would help me out a lot. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll hope to see you next time. Take care. The opinions expressed in this video are mine and solely mine. Healthy debate is always encouraged. Hate is never welcomed. So get over it.